Hello, friends. I recently had a task that needed some repeatable data entry, so I decided to write some code to help me with the task. Um, at a recent community function, we held an auction to raise funds for some youth activities. Once we sold all the items, we were kind of logging these out in a spreadsheet as we went. Who bid on the item, what the item was, who donated it. Um, and we had about 150 items that got sold, and then we wanted to send out messages to everyone um, you know, who had made a purchase. Um, and what we did was I wrote a little program that would take the rows of data and then output them into nice little messages here. And it was a fun little project. And I thought, why not go ahead and share that? So let's take a look here. Okay, so this is the data that I was working with. You can see here that I've got, the tables here. Got the paddle number. Everyone was given a paddle number. And those are going to align with the winner here. The item that was sold, the price that it was sold for, and then who donated it. I've changed a lot of these names here, just for, privacy's sake. And as I mentioned, we can scroll down through the list here. I've got about 150 items or so. Some of them, if they weren't sold, the paddle number didn't get populated, and therefore the winner on that would be NA. I used a little bit of Excel spreadsheet functionality here. Use the little VLOOKUP to populate these names here. So that's something that we're going to have to account for as we are writing our code. That should be fine though. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our code. All right. So again, I've got my code. Got my CSV here in my code editor here. I'm using Tmux along with NeoVim and Alacrity. So I've created, this is my done project here. Let's go ahead and copy over that CSV into our new project here. I've got one called, we're going to call it auction-go. And we'll go ahead and make a copy. Just copy that in right here. All right, so I got a copy of my CSV here. That's going to be handy for when I start writing my code. And maybe get this a little bit bigger. And I don't think I'll be able to resize. Okay, and I want to turn this into a Go project here. So I'm going to do a Go mod init. And when you run this, you've got to give it, what's your package going to be called here? And I follow a format of github.com/what my username is, and then what I'm going to call the project here. And I'll call it auction-go. That creates a go.mod for us. And once I go ahead and get a main.go file in here, I can start running my code. I'm not going to build it today. I'm just going to use go run just for ease of use here. So I've got package main, and let's go ahead and define our main function here. And just to make sure that we've got everything working, go run main.go. I'm going to go ahead and disable Copilot here. It's going to drive me crazy. All right. So I've got a little to-do list here of what it is that our code needs to do. So hope you can see that all right. So we will need to read in the CSV first off. And then we're going to transform each row in the CSV into a usable object. We're going to group all the bidders. We're going to use, just to kind of spoil a little bit here, we're going to use what's called a map. That's going to give us kind of a key value pair structured item where each key is going to be a different bidder. And its value is going to be an array or a list of all of the items that they bid on. And then once we've got that data structure nice and in place, we're going to start to iterate over each of the bidders, and then compose a nice little message that's going to have a greeting. It's going to give some instructions on how to pay. And then most importantly, we want to make a list of all the items that they won. And then we want to write that out back to file. We're not going to go the further step of sending these out as emails or anything like that. We're just going to get to that point. But let's go ahead and start putting down a little bit of code here. All right, so I know that I'm going to need to be able to open the file first. So let's go ahead and just try to do like an open file. And we want fake auction.csv. And if I save, that'll go ahead and run my import there. And let's see what my errors are. It's giving me a couple here. First, I've declared the file, haven't used it yet. That's fine, I'll get to that. It's giving me an error about not catching enough variables. And that's true because this is going to export an error, or this function returns an error if there is one. And then we also need a little bit more here in our open file. And let's go ahead and just start with that. And see what the error is. Let's see, so the open file, it's going to need some flags in here. I believe those are going to represent like, most users will use open or create. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording for a second here. Okay. So I realized what I had done previously here is that I wasn't using an open file, I was just using an open. And that should solve that for us. So it gets our file open, and let's go ahead and just for the heck of it, let's go and see what that gives us. All right, and it's just giving us like a location memory here. Okay, now that I've got my file, let's see here. I want to start reading in. I know this is a CSV. So let's go ahead and pass in that file here into a CSV reader. And there is a built-in Golang package. It's this encoding/CSV. And that gives us a new CSV reader. So what this does is it takes in a file, and then it gives us an object called a reader here. So let's go ahead and use that. And I believe that it also returns an error. No, it just sends out a reader. And then from here, now that I've got my reader, I can start to call some methods on it. I can go ahead and do a read all. And let's go ahead and get the return here. Records.readAll. And of course, again, we're looking for an error here, which again, if I were making production grade code, I'd want to handle that error a little bit more gracefully. I am not doing that right now. I am just writing some hobby code here, in which case, I'm totally fine if that error isn't handled gracefully. All right. So boom, there I go. I've got my CSV being read into my code now. The structure that this takes is, we can see here at the bottom, it's an array of arrays, and each of those arrays has some strings in it. And that's how it reads in the comma separated values sheet here. And so if I look at, say, records at 0, that's going to be my first one. I actually want to look at my second one. I know that. Let me clear this just to make it a little bit easier to read. I've got my, you can see here that I've got all the values here. And so what I want to do now, this is what I'm going to be looking at. I've got an array of strings here, and let's go back to those to-dos real quick. And I've read in the CSVs. Let's go ahead and transform each row into a usable object now. So this is going to get a little bit hairy here. So first off, let's go ahead and define a type. That's going to be make a little bit more sense to us. So we will call this type. We'll call it item. It's going to be a struct here, and it's going to have a name. So it's going to be the name of the item. And it'll have a winner, and that's going to be a string as well. It'll have a price. Again, just because we're reading them in all as strings, I'm going to be calling them all as strings. That's fine. We're not going to do any transformation here yet. So I've got a struct that I'm going to use, and then let's go ahead and make kind of a function that's going to take in one of these rows of records here. We'll call this transform record to item. And this is going to take in a record, which is going to be an array of strings here. And it's going to return out an item. And so what we're going to do is return an item with a name. Now again, I'm looking here at this row for reference here. So now at the 0 index, I've got the paddle number. At the first index, I've got the price of the item, and then the second, or the third, or the 2 index here, I've actually got the item's name here. So we'll say record at 2 should be our name, and let's go ahead and add winner. It's going to be record at, again, I can count here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's going to be 6. Let's see, I need to get the price. It's going to be record at 1. And then we need to get the donor here. That's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So record at 4. Okay. Looking how that's looking so far. Well, so let's go ahead, start to iterate over these records and get back a list of items here. So I'm going to say that I've got a list of, I want items to equal an array of item. Let's see. We want their items. It's going to be an array of items here. And then for record and range records, we want to say item is going to equal transform record to item. And then let's, so what this does is going to take in each record, and it's going to return out an item. And then as I'm looping over it, I want to append it into this items array here. Let's say items equals append items with the new item here. All right, let's go ahead. And after I've got that, let's go ahead and print out the items here. That's looking better here. So now I've got a big long array here of all of my items together. And just to make sure that I've got that looking right, let's do @0. And we'll say what the name is here. This is going to be problematic, I know, because that first record is actually going to be my table header here. So actually what we can do here to help out is, when you do like a range, when you're iterating over it, it's going to return out two values. The first one is going to be the index in the array, and then the second property is going to be the actual value of the index, or of the item in the array. And I'll just say if index is greater than 0, then we'll do all this logic here. All right, so let's go ahead and test that, make sure it's late for me. So I'm a little bit prone to make errors here. But that's better. That means that I've gotten rid of that first row. I could have done it another way. I could have just popped out, the first item in the array. But I didn't want to do that. Now I don't have to worry about seeing that data for the rest of my code here. All right. So let's go ahead, jump back to our to-dos. And I can see that I've got each row is in the CSV. It's now a usable object here. Let's get back into the code. All right. So what I need to do now is I want to iterate over all the items and put this into a large structure that's called a map. What it's going to look like for us is, let's say I've got a family called the Simpsons here. And then in here, I'm going to have a list of all their items. Item 1. And we'll get another family here. These will be the Flanders. We'll have item 2 and so forth. So that way I can start to iterate over each of the families and then create a list for them. That's kind of the object that I want here. So let's kind of look back at this. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and create a new type here. This is going to be a type called, we'll say, winners map. It's going to be a map where the key is a string and the value is going to be an array of items here. All right. So now that I have that, what I could do is I could iterate over the items again. I could just go for blank and item and range items. And then I can, let's go ahead and declare a map, winners map, map of type winners map. And then I can say winners map at index of item dot donor is going to, let's see here, what am I going to do with that? What I want to do is I want to set this equal to an array But because the type is already there, it knows it's going to be an array. So we can just say equals append winners map at item.donor along with my new item here. And that should work. Let's go ahead and see if winners map. All right, I'm starting to get an error here. This is telling me that I've got, let's see, in line 40 of my code, assignment to entry in nil map. So let's take a look and see what's going on. I think that might be what's giving us trouble here. Shall we see if that fixes it? Okay, that's a little bit better there. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just look at one of the families that I know, or one of the bidders that's going to be in here. That's my name. And just see the things that we bought here. Perfect. Those are the things that we bought. And actually, I know here, just from thinking about this, these are the items that we actually donated here. And yeah, that's because I'm indexing these by donor instead of winner here. So let's go ahead and try that again. Perfect. This is what I remember buying. Bought some babysitting and some basketball lessons and some sticky buttons. Excited for those. Okay, but what I'm thinking here is that I'm iterating over this twice. I'm iterating over all the records, and then I'm going and doing it again. I don't necessarily need to do that. So I think that I can just add this code right in here. As long as my winners map exists above there, I think that would still work for me. Let's see. My concern here, no, that should be just fine. Yep, and just as I thought, it is still continuing to work just properly there. Cool. All right, so let's go back to our to-do list here. You can see that I've grouped each bidder using the map here, and then I've grouped each item with the bidder and the winner. Perfect. Okay. Transition back here. I'm in good shape. Ooh, I don't know what I just did there. All right. Next, what we want to do is we want to, for each of these items here, or for each of the bidders, the winners of the items, we want to generate a little message for it that says, thanks for attending, or greets them by their name, hello Simpson family, thanks for attending our event. Here's a list of your items that you won with the total of all the items there. And then here's where you go to, make your donation. All right, this code's going to get a little bit hairy, so I'm not going to do this totally inline. If I were making production code, I'd start to refactor this right about now. But I'm not concerned about that yet. So let's go ahead and create a function here. And this is going to be called generate message. And it's going to take in, let's say, a bidder name, which is going to be a string. And we'll say items, which is going to be a list of items. It's going to return out a string here. All right, so I'm thinking here that the way this is going to work is that I'll start off with a message that's just an empty string, and then just kind of add to it a little bit. So there's the main way that we do that. So typically just declare our message here and set it into an empty string, and then at the end here we'll return that message. All right. So we want to do a couple things here. Out here, let's go ahead and create a greeting. We'll say greeting equals hello, %s. Thank you for attending our event. And I need to wrap this in a sprintf. Along with their name. Okay. And so once I've got that greeting, message will plus equal greeting. And then, okay, so I need to go through the items here. Let's say items message. I kind of want this to be an empty string as well. And you know what? This items message here, I like the idea of actually making this its own method here. Or this own function here. So we'll say a func generate items list message, and this is only going to take in the items here and return out a string. Total here, and then I do know that as I'm going through this, I'm going to need to add a total here. So let's go ahead and iterate over the items here. Item range items. We'll say items message plus equals. We use our handy dandy sprintf again and say we'll start off with like here is a list of your items, colon, and add in a character return there, and add on, and we'll say %s, and do like 2 little dashes here, and I'll say %s, and that's going to be item dot name and item dot price. And I'll handle that in a second here. And we'll say return items message. Okie doke. So I don't need that. We'll say items message equals generate items list message. I'm gonna pass in the items there. And okay. So I know I've got a little bit more functionality to add in the code, but I want to make sure that I'm on the right track before I realize I've made a horrible mistake. So let's go ahead and start in range winners map, and we'll say generate message key and val. And really I can just say bidder name and items. Because that's what those represent. Generate message. All right, so it's returning out a string here. And we'll just go ahead and for now, add that here. Messages. And we'll just go ahead and append that here. And let's go ahead and just print out our messages. See what we're looking at here. It's probably not going to look very pretty. Boom, but I'm in good shape here. So I can start to add a little bit of extra functionality. I can see that, you know, these aren't adding in some line breaks where I would like them. So let's do that. That'll help clean things up here. Let's say after those, after every item, we want to add in a line break. And then maybe add one in after the end of each message. Is that looking better so far? Oh, that is looking better. All right, so let's see. Just for the fun of it, I think that'll look better, even more. Thank you for attending our event. Here's a list of your items. Okay. All right, so I'm starting to generate these messages here. But something that I can see that's already going to be a little bit tricky for us here is that these amounts are they're strings. You can't add up strings. You know, you can add strings, but it doesn't do what you're expecting here in Go. So we need to convert those, and the type we're going to convert them into is going to be our float type. So let's start working on this logic again here. And let's see here what we can do. Go ahead and say converted price is going to equal item dot price. And what we want to do here, there is a function here. It's going to be string conversion parse float item dot price, and then we need to tell it how many bytes that we want it to be. And in this case, we're going to do 64. And let's see. Did my string convert? Let's see what error I'm getting. Oh, okay. It's also telling me, hey, I've got a, this should be exporting an error, or it's returning out an error, which makes sense. There's a lot that could go wrong if you're passing in a string that you can't really turn into a float. So you need to make sure to handle that. I'm not going to. But one thing I also know right away here, you know, I could let the code run. We could say total plus equals converted price. But what I can see here, first off, it's giving me this error. It's saying, hey, I'm trying to add a float to an int. Can't do that. So let's just go ahead and set total to a float. And just for fun, before I kind of compose the message a little bit more, let's see what happens when I try to print out the total here. All right. And I'm getting a bunch of zeros here. It's hard to see where that's coming from. But what's going on here right now is that the part that Let's do this. Let's actually log out that error. We'll do if error not equals nil. And just print those errors out, because there's going to be errors here. It's not showing it. I guess it's not as complaining as the way I thought it was going to. But what we should be seeing here is that these prices have a $sign in front of them. So I know that if the price is there, that there'll be a $sign as its first character. There's a little trick that we can do here. We can treat the string, use the same bracket notation. We can access characters within it. Or what I can do here is I can pass in this one colon syntax, and what that says is grab me everything from the first character to the end, which should make it so our $sign gets omitted. All right. It's starting to look better, except now I'm getting one that says slice out of bounds of range. And again, I already know what's going on here. Mainly because I did this and struggled for it. You don't need to see that. What's going on here is that slice out of bounds of range means that it's trying to get the first index of a string that only has 0 indexes on it here. And if I look at my data, let's go back here. And if I check out my data, and I look and I say, hey, is there any time when there's nothing in the price? And sure enough, I can see that I've got a few rows here. Well, what happened here within this data is that there was no one that bid on this. Either, the item didn't get sold, didn't get put up for auction. Maybe it wasn't a very good item. But there's a couple things that we can do here. We can check to see if there is a price, if the length of the price is greater than 0, or something that we could even do that would be a little bit maybe a better solution is I can weed out any of these where the winner's name is hashtag n/a. By doing that, it should make it so I've only got items where there wasn't actually a bidder on it. And that is what we're going to do. So I need to do this at a different point in my code here. I need to add in if item dot winner does not equal n/a, then I can do this. Maybe looking at this saying, ooh, that's some nested if statements and for loops. Yeah, it is. This is pretty spaghetti code, but again, this is hobby code. Just trying to get a task done. Let's go ahead and try to run this one more time, see if my errors are gone. And sure enough, they are. All right. And if I were to scroll up, I'd see all the totals there. But what I want to do is, now that I've got my items message, it's listing out everything. And we'll go ahead and just say items message plus equals F. We'll say total for all items. And we'll do, I'd say, let's do a %s, but, and then pass in the total here. That's not going to work though, because instead of a %s, we need to pass in a point to f, which says let's get a float in here to 2 decimal points. And then I put that $sign in front of it just because I want it to look nice, look more readable here. All right, let's take a look at those items messages here. All right, starting to look better here. And then let's just do a little bit of an eye test. Say, okay, well, here's a list of items. Somebody got some eggs delivered. So some darn expensive eggs. $60 a piece for a total for $120. Perfect. Looking good here. Let's go ahead, make sure to enter in some line breaks. There we go. So this message is starting to look much better now. It gets one bidder. There's a little greeting. Here's a list of all your items. Total them all up. And let's go ahead and actually, let's look back at our to-dos here. I can see that I've got my greeting. I've got a list of all the items that the bidder won, and then we'll go ahead and give those instructions here, and they're just going to be something that we're going to make up. And I'll call a function func generate instructions. And we'll just say return to pay. Please go to www.payformyawesomeauctionstuff.com. Not a real website. Don't try to visit it and pay anything there. Let's see, generate message now. Say message plus equals generate. So I'll say generate instruction. All right, give that another run. All right. Okay, I am liking this so far. All right, so that gets almost to the end of this. The last thing that we want to do is that I want to write this to file now. Again, I might want to clean this code up a little bit. Yeah, you could do that on your own. Let's go ahead and say output file. And on this one, we do need to use that open file. And we'll just save this as auction. And we'll call this fake auction messages.txt here. Okay, now I need to go ahead and give it some flags. These are essentially going to look like our permissions on what we want to allow our code to do here. And then we need a few. We need os.oappend or os.ocreate or os.oronly. And then pass it in 0644. This essentially is just saying, let's give the code all the permissions to do, whether it needs to create the file, whether it needs to add on new lines of text. We want to make sure that we can do that. And then we want to do this. This is a handy little Go syntax here called a defer. And what that allows us to do is, if there's some code that needs to, an operation that needs to get taken care of later, organizationally, it makes more sense for us to put this code right close to where the action is. But we can say, hey, at the end of this code block here, go ahead and close it. Excuse me. I can go ahead and just call an output file dot write write string with messages. All right. Let's give that a shot. Go run main.go. I'm expecting that there should be, when I hit this ls, there should be a fake auction messages.txt. Let's go ahead and just cat that. Boom. I've got all my messages written out nicely here. Okay. Go back to my to-dos. Make sure we covered everything. I've got some instructions here, and I'm writing the messages back to file. Again, you know, if I wanted to do a little bit more, there's certainly a lot of different ways that we could take this code. You know, I could start to iterate over each of those messages. As I'm iterating over these, you know, if I have like an email functionality, send email with, you know, item.email. We didn't have that information there. Or, you know, if we have the bidder name, we could have added in. You know, extended out the map values, bidder name.email, and then MSG, send the message out. That would have been nice. Or we could have generated like a Stripe link, so that way they could pay it easily. Again, you know, the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want. But as for now, this was simply all that we needed to get done. All right, I hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it. You know, this is something that manually, if I would have done it, might have taken me, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half. Yeah, maybe a little bit less than that, but it would have been frustrating and tedious. I could have used some other functionality, like some pivot tables, you know, to do a lot of that functionality. But I'm a coder by trade. You know, this is how I like to, you know, attack any, you know, anything that needs a solution. And yeah, did I turn like a 30-minute project into a project that took me a couple hours? Yeah, I did. And that often happens when we're writing code. But, you know, there's great benefits to doing a project like this. You know, you get familiar with, you know, different libraries that you may not ordinarily use. You're prepared for the next time a situation like this arises. And instead of 150 rows, I've got 10,000, 100,000 rows of data there, in which case, yeah, I certainly would want to be using some code there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you again soon.